I promise I will take a break from wrestling games for a bit, but I needed to wash the taste of the bad elements of the WWE GameCube games out, and I thought this would be the best choice seeing as how this is also a GameCube exclusive wrestling game. Kinnikuman started in the late 70s as a manga by the duo of Yoshinori Nakai and Takashi Shimada, better known as Yude Tamago. I can't quite get the pronunciation down, but this is beside the point. Yude Tamago. The two had met in 4th grade, and Shimada had the idea of Kinnikuman since the 5th grade. They had continued many ideas throughout middle and high school, but it wasn't until 1978 when Kinnikuman almost won the Knife Akatsuka Award, and it ended up debuting in the 1979 number 2 issue of Weekly Shonen Jump. The story primarily followed the titular character, whose real name is Suguru Kinniku, who ends up finding out he's actually the prince of planet Kinniku, and he was to prove himself worthy of the throne by battling evil Chojin in wrestling competitions. Throughout its use of action, comedy, and wrestling, Kinnikuman went on to run from May 28, 1979 to May 4, 1987. Not to mention it was an early shonen manga that really paved the way for future entries in the field of it. So if it wasn't for Kinnikuman, we wouldn't have Dragon Ball, Yu Yu Hakusho, etc. And by the way, the power levels in general in Kinnikuman make over 9,000 and Dragon Ball Z look like a joke, but I digress. By association, we wouldn't have Kinnikuman without Astro Boy, but that's for another day. Kinnikuman would also get an anime that aired 137 episodes from April 3rd, 1983 to October 1st, 1986. There was also another series in the early 90s, and before that, a spin-off of one of the more popular side characters, Ramen Man. Kinnikuman was more popular in Japan than in the West, but the West did get some representation of it in the toys. They were eraser-like action figures and were known by the name Muscle in the 1980s. There was even a game based on this line, Tag Team Muscle, for the NES. But the game we're going to be talking about today came from the sequel series, Kinnikuman 2, Sei, known in America as Ultimate Muscle, The Kinnikuman Legacy. The sequel series started out as a manga in the late 90s and ran from April of 1998 to April 2004 in Weekly Playboy in Japan. The anime, based off of it, aired from January to December 2002 in Japan for 51 episodes. It also aired with an English dub on Saturday mornings on the Fox Box. This dub was done by the infamous 4Kids Entertainment, but it was one of the better ones. It was basically a TNG sequel-style series, with many of the old guard here to help train the next generation of Chojin to fight the next generation of evil Chojin. In particular, the focus was on Kinniku Mantaro, aka Kid Muscle in the dub, the son of Suguru Kinniku. Some legacy characters also had kids of their own, with Terry the Kid, or Terry the Grand Canyon in the English dub, is the son of Terry Man, and there were some all-new characters on both sides. The anime still kept a lot of what made the original so good, and it was what got me hooked on the franchise. Though I do wish a proper Japanese audio release with English subs in the US would happen, because 4Kids still got a 4Kids, and the only way to watch it subbed is through a crappy fan sub that was made years ago when the anime was new, and only went up to episode 26. Seriously, Discotech, please, you gave us the Japanese version of Sonic X, now give us the Japanese version of Kinnikuman Nisei, but I digress. Ultimate Muscle actually got more popular in the States, and as a result, it became the second title that 4Kids was actually able to commission a new season for, with Sonic X being the first. That shorted sequel series was known as Kinnikuman 2 Sei Ultimate Muscle and ran for 26 episodes from April 7, 2004 to March 29, 2006. With the anime especially being popular in the West, it was only a matter of time before a new game was to be released. It was actually first revealed at Tokyo Game Show 2002. The game was almost done by this point and was revealed to be helmed by none other than Aki Corporation. It may seem like such a tonal whiplash for them given the wrestling games they made prior to this, and even the ones that they made for that generation, for the 6th generation, but rest assured, the game was still going to be quite the time based on the previews, though at that point no official US release was announced. The game did make its Japanese debut in late 2002 and was scheduled for a spring 2003 release, but the game ended up getting a short delay. It didn't make its US debut until summer 2003. Ultimate Muscle Legends vs. New Generation, known in Japan as Kinnikuman Nisei New Generation vs. Legends, was developed by Aki Corporation and published by Bandai, and released exclusively for the GameCube in Japan on November 22, 2002, and June 5, 2003 for North America. Sorry PAL users, no release here. I don't know how popular Ultimate Muscle was over there, or even if it was enough to warrant a release. Despite being much different from the usual fare Aki Corporation had put out before, or even the same year with Def Jam Vendetta, Ultimate Muscle not only turned out to be another solid brawler in a sea of them from the famed group, but it also might just be the best wrestling game on the GameCube. Okay, wrestling might be putting it a bit lightly given how it plays, but come on. It was still more fun than all of the WWE games in my own experience. That's just me, though. And with the announcement of a new Kinnikuman anime coming soon based on the Revival manga, there's no better time to sing this game's praises than now. Ultimate Muscle has several modes of play. You have your standard free match mode that will let you wrestle singles matches, which you can have a corner man for, tag matches, tornado tag matches, and battle royals with either 3 or 4 entrants at a time. You can also watch the computer fight if you're into that sort of thing. There's also a tournament mode with singles and tag options that can have up to 8 and 16 characters respectively. This mode is just for fun though, and doesn't unlock anything. You don't even get a special ending bit for when you win a tournament, it just takes you back to the menu. There is also a create mode, but it's very limited compared to other wrestling games' CAW modes. The story behind this is that in November 2001, VJUP and Shukan Playboy magazines asked readers to submit their creations to be featured in this game. This probably meant this game was kicking around since late 2001, and given that there was a short movie basically a little bit before the official anime, I guess this isn't really much of a surprise. Yude Tamago selected 9 characters and put one of their own in there. The CAW mode allows you to mix and match various parts to make your own characters to use in versus and tournament modes. You can even exchange your created wrestlers via memory cards. There is also the toy mode. As you play throughout the game, you can earn kin medals, both by winning matches and getting them through power-ups occasionally. More on that later. You spend them here on the capsule machines to get the toys. This will come in handy for unlocking some characters, but again, more on that later. You're going to need to earn some first before spending, and that's where the main mode of the game comes in. Story mode. The story mode section will put the character you select through 5 matches. The first 2 being singles matches with partners of your choice, a tag match with a partner of your choice, then 2 designated singles matches against specific opponents, which still let you choose a corner man. The first 3 matches will let you select an opponent. Once you run through that specific story, if you beat it with a younger Chojin, you unlock an older Chojin to use in story mode. For example, beat it with Kid Muscle, and you'll get King Muscle to use in story mode. He, along with the original Kinnikuman characters, can already be used outside of story mode from the start. There are 4 characters that have to be separately unlocked before they can be used in any mode, but more on that later. The story mode itself has each character going through their own trials and tribulations, and it plays out in a Tekken sort of like fashion. It doesn't really tend to follow any specific anime arc, though the manual does give the background for the anime on the whole. Either way, it's a fine mode though, and there is a decent amount to explore here. While Ultimate Muscle was still made in the same vein of the many wrestling games Aki made before, there are some key differences that help it stand out. While the previous games they made were more methodically paced and down to earth, this one is much more faster paced and not so much down to earth. Characters can zip around, they can launch other characters into ropes, they can grapple them from the ropes after they bounce off, grapple them in the air, etc. As a result, the action is much more hectic. Beyond that, each character fighting now has a health bar. You'll keep attacking them to drain it. So it really does feel more like a fighting game than a normal wrestling game in this regard, since you can't pin them. That's not to say it doesn't have wrestling elements. There are still plenty of those to go around. For starters, you have your basic grappling system. You can grapple from the front and behind. The one you perform will depend on which direction the analog stick is pressed in, and whichever direction you're facing. You can actually throw your opponent up as well. You can even attack them and slam them down after throwing them up into the air. You have a hammer throw to launch opponent into the ropes. You can do mid-air throws, and you have counter throws after hammer throws, and step throws that can be done during mid-step. You also have a standard striking attack. You got singles, combo attack, and power attack by holding the strike button, and a power combo attack by holding A after completing a combo attack. You can also do dashes, attacks after dashing, in mid-air, and when an opponent is on the ground, both light and heavy. You have a couple specific tag actions as well. Power throw to attack from the side, and in the ring during tornado tags. If you're a support character, you can give a power-up that can either refill health or the meter below health, the power meter. This happens after the support meter is maxed out. Sometimes power-ups can appear at random. These come from capsules and include a bomb to damage, lightning to lose power, claw decreases speed, gold and silver mass increase power and health respectively, and meat can drop a meatball to max the power out. Even certain characters have their own health power-ups. Depending on the level of your power meter, you can do a special attack, throw, or finishing move if the meter is at 1, 2, or 3 respectively. Be careful not to miss, but you don't have much to regain if you lose it. You can also guard with that dash, so it's more like an evade, but you get the idea. Okay, so maybe it actually is a bit more in-depth than I realize, but it's done in a different way compared to Aki's prior games. It's more about you grasping the craziness going on around you and reacting fast enough, being on the offense, compared to trying to figure out your opponent's next move and keep a hold on them. You'll still need to here, but more in an offensive way than a defensive way. With all this chaos, it would be a pain to manage if the controls weren't good. Fortunately, they are. A is your strike button, B guard/dashes depending on if you're moving or not, L and R are the specials for attack and throws respectively. Using them together activates the finishing move on a full power meter, Y grapples, X jumps, Z supports, left analog stick moves, and the C stick can be used for tag and changing targets in tag matches. You even have some defensive maneuvers in there. You can counter strikes by pressing B at the right time, and you can evade grapples by pressing A at the right time. Pressing X at the right time can help you counter air grapples and hammer throws. Finally, L plus A can hit level 1 special attack, L plus Y can hit a level 2 special grapple, and L plus R can hit a level 3 finisher. You can use L plus R in tag matches when both power meters are full, and hit a double finisher. Some characters can also use their special moves depending on if they're in the air or facing someone from behind. Y then X can throw someone up, holding X can trigger an attack, Y then activates the hammer throws. Support actions include using A to give power to your fighter, Z to do the power throw and tornado tags, and use physical power to support an ally or hurt enemy. B can send out a capsule with an item. Yeah, it's a lot to take in. Not to mention, there are a few different control schemes as well, if the default isn't up to your liking. It always seems to be a lot to take in for these types of games, but you can grasp it easily enough. There's no training mode though to practice, and that sucks. Not to mention, there's not much in terms of ground grapples, but I guess that's to be expected given the nature of the game. Still, if you hadn't played any other Aki wrestling game before this, you probably won't be lost too much. Either way, everything works as it should, inputs are responsive, and there's a lot to play around with. The graphics here are pretty good. The tried and truly tested cel-shaded graphics are on display here. It makes sense given that this game is based off the anime, and everything really shines here. The game is plenty colorful and cartoony, which you would expect. This is especially true in the models. They look just like they do in the show, but in 3D. Some of the move animations have been recycled from past Aki wrestling games, but this is limited to the more grounded moves. The variety of air moves and special moves and the like really do help add some variety. The animation for some also look pretty good. I doubt some of the more outlandish ones are motion captured. They probably are hand animated, but they still show the effectiveness of each and every move well. They're also just plain cool to look at. Not to mention, some of the more fantastical moves have their appropriate touches, like extra comic book effects. And you see, like, certain effects when the Kinnikuman Buster or Muscle Buster is pulled off. And the finishing moves especially look cool. Most of the other stuff is fine as well. The ring looks as it should, and it has several different mat designs. Each arena also has its own distinct look and has all the little details in each part to make it stand out from one another. There's even a further touch with the commentators, whose 2D versions occasionally appear on screen when something cool happens, and meet at ringside, but they don't look as good as the player models, and their animations are more limited. The background crowd also doesn't look great, but that's a smaller thing in the grand scheme of these games. The camera also does a decent enough job of keeping track of the action, but I do wish it would zoom in and out just a bit less than usual. Ugh, don't need any Kevin Dunn flashbacks. Okay, maybe not that bad, but still, it can be a bit much. Still, it is better than being attacked off screen by a tag partner in Day of Reckoning 2. On the whole, the aesthetics of this game are very pleasing and well represented. Those familiar with the franchise will feel right at home, and those who aren't will get a taste of what it's like. It may not push the system like Day of Reckoning 2, but it gets the job done. The sound design also fits the aesthetics well. Punching and mat slams sound as they should. The music itself is good. It follows an idea similar to the older SmackDown games' music, but a lot of it does fit here, with guitar-oriented stuff, some hype here and there, yeah. Though some of the stuff is on the more generic side, mainly in the English dub, in the intro and the credits stuff. The Japanese intro actually uses the anime's theme, which is good because that theme kicks ass. The title screen uses the original Kinnikuman theme, and the credits theme for finishing with a newer Chojin is My Chop, which is the second ending theme for the back half of Kinnikuman Nisei, and the credits theme for finishing with a legend is 2x9 Chop from the original Kinnikuman. The US version just has more generic stuff in its place. Other than that, the soundtrack between the two versions is very similar and it works, but the Japanese version has the slight edge. Special attacks are also given that extra flair that really make them sound special, and all other sound effects fit the game well. Menu sounds are cool, in-game sounds are opening capsules, collecting items, special attack. There's just no other way to say it. It all fits. The voice acting will depend on which version you have. Both versions have their original cast, but I give the edge to the Japanese version. This is mainly due to the localization. For some reason, in their infinite wisdom, 4Kids changed the nationalities of some of the characters. Mainly, Buffalo Man from Spain to Russia, or at least with how they portrayed it, have him come off that way. Not to mention Jade, or Jaeger in the dub, despite being German, sports a bad imitation of Arnold Schwarzenegger, who is Austrian, mind you. I know, they're a neighboring country, but still, it just, I don't know. And Checkmate sounds British in the dub despite being from Monaco, and so on. Most voices fit fine. Mantaro voiced by Mark Thompson, for example, and who I realized Mark Thompson actually did voiceover work on Daria, so yeah, many of the male characters, so yeah, it's kind of funny. But some feel off. Meat in particular sounds too much like Mickey from the Rocky films here, and it feels so off having gotten used to his Japanese voice. I don't necessarily blame Mike Pollock. I mean, we know he's a damn good voice actor. I just feel the direction was off. Not everything misses the mark, but it feels inconsistent. The Japanese version is more consistent. I actually sort of made my own undubbed version by extracting the Japanese voices and putting them in an English ISO, overwriting the dub. Though I could expand on this, but that's for another time. Still, some won't mind, but if you know a lot about 4Kids dubs, yeah, you might notice a bit here and more. It's nothing bad to the effect of One Piece, but still, I don't know. There is a decent amount of replayability, though, in the entire game. Collecting the toys isn't just there for the heck of it. You'll use it to unlock some characters. 100 toys unlocks Scarface, Escara in the dub, 200 unlocks Hanzo, 300 unlocks Bone Cold, and beating the game with them respectively unlocks Warsman, the Ninja, and Kinkotsuman, aka Skullduggery in the dub. Okay, so it's more like 6 characters. Whoops. And beating story mode with all the characters unlocks Panda Man for the CAW mode. There are also 2 extra toy machines to unlock. This includes a specific Ultimate Muscle machine with the toys from that line. Going for 100% can take a while, especially since it can be down to luck to avoid getting duplicate toys, since those don't count towards the unlocked total. Ultimate Muscle Legends vs. New Generation successfully translates what made the anime so good into video game form. Aki still kept some elements of familiarity from their past wrestling games, while still putting the essential stuff that makes Kinnikuman here. It looks good, sounds good, plays good, has a bunch of replayability, and I think it definitely managed to stand out in its own way amongst the other GameCube wrestling games. Not to mention it has more depth than it initially lets on. However, there's no training mode. The English dub, while not the worst, still has some of those 4Kids isms that can be hard to shake, which makes it more inconsistent. The luck thing for unlocking unique toys can be a pain. Some graphical effects don't hold up well. The game can get too hectic for those not used to the action. And it's kind of a pain in the ass to get a physical copy of for a decent price. This game is in triple-digit territory for a CIB copy, and there's little chance of it getting ported to modern systems. It didn't used to be this way 20 years ago when it was new, or even 10 years ago it wasn't this bad. If you are a fan of the manga/anime, you probably own it already, but if you don't, it might be worth it for a die-hard fan. Anyone else on the fence or not willing to pay the expensive price, emulate it or play it on a modified system, especially if you want something different for wrestling game standards. I'm very glad I play this. I just want to finish the anime in its original form with English subs and make the best undubbed version of this possible. I give Ultimate Muscle Legends vs. New Generations a 4 out of 5. And yeah, that's pretty much every GameCube exclusive wrestling game out there. So when the best one is based off an anime and doesn't even let you pin, I don't know, man. I know there is a separate follow-up on the PS2, but I'm gonna save that for later.
Thanks for watching. If you like what you saw, click the big red button below to subscribe. Check out the other links in the description for more cool stuff, and check out the playlist on screen for more content. See you in the next video.